My wife cheated on me with our accountant, and now she's claiming ownership of our $300, $0 house and a $200, $0 inheritance. She says I cheated first to justify her betrayal, and now we're headed to court over everything. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never imagined I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, it feels like I'm living in some damn bad soap opera, but here I am, trying to make sense of everything that's happened. The most shocking part: the day I discovered my wife, Emily, had been cheating on me with our accountant, Mark. That moment changed everything. It was so out of the blue, yet somehow, looking back, there were signs I just refused to see. We had been married for 8 years. I thought things were good, stable even. We had our fights, sure, but nothing that signaled that she was capable of betraying me the way she did. Emily was always a little bitchy, always. Quick to dismiss my feelings or insult me when she was annoyed. But I guess I was blind to how toxic things had become. She was demanding, manipulative, and had this way of twisting every argument to make herself seem innocent. Still, I never thought she'd cheat on me, especially not with Mark, our accountant. I mean, how cliché can you get? The guy was a total slimeball, always trying to flirt with her at work meetings, but I thought she was just brushing him off. Turns out she was just playing me. It started subtly, small things. She'd be late coming home, claiming she was stuck at the office. Her phone was always glued to her hand, and she'd get defensive if I asked who she was texting. She'd vanish into the bedroom for hours, and I'd hear muffled laughter or whispers. I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was stressed from work. But then I noticed the little signs that something was really off. Her phone suddenly password protected, her changing her schedule without telling me, and her getting especially defensive whenever I brought up her late nights or her odd behavior. The day I found out for sure was when I decided to check her phone out of curiosity. I'd been suspicious for a while, but I didn't want to confront her without proof. It was late on a Tuesday night when I finally sneaked into her purse and found her phone. I scrolled through her messages, and everything was normal, until I saw a text from Mark that made my stomach drop. It was late at night, around 11, and she was telling him she couldn't wait to see him again, that she needed him. The messages weren't just flirtatious, they were intimate. She was talking about meeting up, about sex. It hit me like a punch to the gut. My wife, the woman I loved, was sleeping with our accountant. I felt numb, like the world had suddenly gone silent. I kept scrolling, trying to find more, and I found pictures. Pictures of her and Mark in a hotel room, lying in bed, half-dressed. She was smiling, looking happy. It was like I was looking at a stranger's life, not my wife's. I couldn't believe it. How did I miss all this? How did she manage to hide it so well? I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly heartbroken all at once. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, but I just closed her phone and sat there in the dark, trying to process what I'd just seen. That night was the beginning of the end. I knew I had to confront her. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was undeniable. I had caught her red-handed, and now I had to face her. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up, replaying everything: the good times, the fights, the moments when I thought she loved me. All of it felt like a lie. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could betray me so openly. I felt sick, like I'd been punched in the stomach. And the worst part, I was already starting to think about what I was going to do next. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't know how or when. I just knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I had to face her, get answers, and figure out what I was going to do. Emily was already up, making coffee like nothing had happened. She was her usual bitchy self, snapping at the dog, rolling her eyes when I asked how she slept. I looked at her and realized she had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I thought about how she always dismissed my feelings, how she manipulated every argument to make herself look innocent. Now I saw the truth. She was a liar, a cheat, and she didn't care about us. Not really. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I sat her down at the breakfast table, my hands trembling. "Emily, I know about Mark," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her face froze for a second, then she rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Oh, please, you're imagining things, you're just paranoid." That was her usual response: deny, 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 but I had the proof. I pulled out her phone, showing her the messages. Her face turned red, then white. She tried to lie her way out of it, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that she never meant anything serious, that Mark was just a coworker she was flirting with to boost her ego. I listened to her bullshit, feeling more disgusted with each word. She was a master manipulator. She told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that I was accusing her of something she didn't do. She insisted she loved me, that Mark was just some stupid mistake, and that it didn't mean anything. But I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes, and I knew she was lying. She was a bitch, and she had been screwing around behind my back for who knows how long. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt crushed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I'd always thought I was the good guy in this story, that I was loyal, that I worked hard, that I deserved better. But now I felt like I'd been played for a fool. I wondered how she could be so cold, so calculating, so willing to throw everything away for some meaningless sex. I was angry at her, but I was also heartbroken. I'd loved her, believed in us, and now I was left with nothing but the wreckage of a life I thought I knew. I told her I needed time to think, and I left the house, feeling like I was walking through a fog. I didn't know what to do next. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how I got here. I felt betrayed, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I couldn't keep living in denial. If she was willing to cheat on me, then she didn't deserve my trust anymore. I started to think about my options, whether to try to save the marriage or to cut my losses and walk away. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. That night I sat down at my desk and started going through our finances, looking at the house, the inheritance, the investments. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. That's when I discovered she was already claiming ownership of our house, $300, zero worth, and insisting she had a right to a share of the inheritance from my family's estate, which was about $200, $0. She was making claims I hadn't even considered. She said I had cheated first, that I was the reason she had to do what she did. She was spinning this web of lies, trying to justify her betrayal, and now she was threatening to take everything I had. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, the victim, and she was turning everything around, playing the victim herself. She was bitchy in her accusations, insisting I was the one at fault, that I had been distant, unfaithful, and that I deserved to lose everything because I had cheated on her first. It was all a twisted game to her. I knew I had to fight back, but I didn't know how. I just knew that I was done being the nice guy. I was furious, and I was about to make damn sure she paid for what she did. After spending the night tossing and turning, I woke up feeling more determined than ever. I realized I couldn't let her walk all over me, especially not after she dragged me through this hell. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I needed someone who knew family law, property, and how to handle someone who was already trying to claim everything I worked for. I gave her the details: our house, the inheritance, the joint accounts, everything. The lawyer told me I had a solid case, but I'd need to be prepared for a fight, especially since Emily was already spinning her web of lies. While I waited for the lawyer to get back to me, I started digging into her financials. I wanted to see if she'd been hiding anything. Turns out, she'd been secretly transferring money into her own accounts. Money she claimed was from her freelance side gigs, but I knew better. She'd been siphoning off cash for months, probably planning her little escape route. She always had a bitchy way of twisting things to make herself seem innocent, but I saw through her. She'd been playing me, lying, cheating, while pretending to be the perfect wife. I also started looking into her relationship with Mark. I found some emails and texts she forgot to delete. They were full of sexual innuendos, plans to meet up, and even some explicit pictures. The worst part: she had told me she was working late or at a conference, but she was really with him. I realized she'd been sneaking around for months, maybe longer. It made me furious, but also sad. How did I miss all this? How did I not see the signs? I've been so blind, so trusting. By midday, I was seething. I was furious that she'd lied outright, that she was trying to steal everything I'd worked so hard for. I knew I had to act fast. I called her and told her I was meeting with my lawyer later that day. She tried to act innocent, saying I was overreacting, that she loved me and that I was just jealous. That was her usual line: deny, deny, deny. But I wasn't falling for it. I told her I knew about her affair, about her financial manipulations, and that I was done playing her game. I told her I was filing for divorce and that I was going to fight her on every claim she was making. She went ballistic, started screaming, calling me a control freak, accusing me of cheating myself. Another lie she threw out there to turn the tables. She said I was the one who had been distant, that I'd been unfaithful first, and that she was only getting even. That was her favorite line. She always played the victim, even when she was the one cheating. I couldn't believe her. It was like she was trying to rewrite history, make herself look innocent, and pin everything on me. But I wasn't buying it. I knew her game. I knew she'd been planning this for a while. That night I made a decision. I couldn't stay with her anymore. The trust was completely shattered. I was going to fight her for everything: our house, the inheritance, the money she'd stolen. I had to protect what was mine. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of her texts, bank statements, emails. I wanted to be ready for court, ready to show that she'd been cheating, manipulating, and trying to take everything from me. I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. Anger because she'd betrayed me, and relief because I finally saw her for what she was. Looking back, I realize how much this has changed me. I used to believe in loyalty, in honesty, in the idea that marriage was sacred. Now I see that some people will do anything for their own selfish gain, even if it means destroying the life you built together. I don't regret confronting her or fighting for what's rightfully mine. And honestly, it's made me realize I need to be more careful about who I trust. Because when someone shows you who they really are, you better believe them. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I met with my lawyer multiple times, going over every detail, every dollar, every document, every lie she'd told me. I knew Emily was already scheming behind my back, trying to spin her own version of events to the court. She was bitchy, insistent, and manipulative, claiming she deserved half the house because she contributed to the mortgage and claiming I'd cheated first, which was outright bullshit. She insisted I started it, that I'd been unfaithful, even though I had no proof of her affair until I found her messages. I started to realize the extent of her schemes. She'd been secretly consulting a divorce lawyer of her own, preparing to fight me tooth and nail. She even hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, trying to turn the court against me, claiming I was the one who'd been unfaithful or neglectful. The worst part: she was so damn good at lying and manipulating, she almost convinced some people around her that I was the bad guy. But I had proof: screenshots, bank statements, emails, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. Meanwhile, Emily's attitude got even more bitchy. She was demanding, aggressive, and dismissive of my feelings. She kept claiming she had a right to everything because of all the sacrifices she made, like giving up her career to stay home and raise our kids, which we never even had. She said she was entitled to the house, the inheritance, the savings. She told me I was just a selfish asshole who didn't appreciate her efforts, that she was the real victim here, not me. It was infuriating. Her lies kept piling up, and I knew I had to be one step ahead if I wanted to win this fight. One night, I found out she'd been secretly talking to her friends, trying to rally support and sway people to her side. She was telling them I was the unfaithful one, that I'd been controlling and distant, trying to paint herself as the victim. I heard her bitchy voice on the phone, claiming I'd cheated first and that she was only getting even with me. It was a sick game. She was trying to turn everyone against me, to make me look like the bad guy so she could walk away with everything. That's when I realized she was willing to do anything, even lie, cheat, and manipulate, to get what she wanted. I also started to think about what I was really fighting for. I wasn't just after the house and money. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity, and my future. I knew Emily wouldn't stop until she got her way, so I had to be strategic. I decided I'd go to court prepared, with all my evidence laid out, ready to prove her lies and her infidelity. I wanted to make sure she couldn't spin her web of bullshit and walk away with everything. I was getting angrier by the day, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to stand my ground, no matter how bitchy or manipulative she got. Things escalated quickly when she started threatening me with court papers, claiming I'd been unfaithful and that I'd cheated first. She insisted that because I'd started it, she deserved half the house and a chunk of my inheritance. She claimed I was the one who'd been distant and unfaithful, which was total bullshit. I knew she was just trying to justify her betrayal, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her straight that I'd fight her all the way and I wasn't backing down. I was done being the victim in this story. It was time to take control and protect what was mine. By this point, I was completely consumed with anger and determination. Every day, I was pushing harder to prepare for the inevitable court battle. I collected every piece of evidence I had, screenshots of her texts with marked bank statements showing her secret transfers, emails where she was scheming with her friends, and even some of her own confessions about how she'd been planning her betrayal. I knew that if I wanted to win, I had to be meticulous, strategic, and relentless. I couldn't let her manipulate her way out of this, not this time. Emily's attitude grew even bitchier. She started acting like she owned the place, throwing tantrums, demanding I drop the whole thing, claiming she was entitled to her fair share. She told me I was a controlling bastard, that I was the one who had cheated first, another lie just like all her others. She kept insisting that I had been unfaithful and that I was the one who started it, making her justified in her actions. She said she was only getting even because I'd been distant, that I didn't appreciate her sacrifices. It made me sick how she twisted everything to suit her narrative. One night, she crossed a line. She showed up at my office unannounced, bitching and yelling, trying to guilt me into dropping the whole thing. She told me I was ruining her life and that I was a damn asshole for destroying everything we built. She called me controlling, saying I was the reason she cheated, that I'd pushed her into Mark's arms. She was crying fake tears, trying to look innocent, but I saw right through her. I told her to get out, that I wasn't going to listen to her manipulations anymore. That was the moment I realized I couldn't trust her, not as my wife, not as a person. Meanwhile, I also started thinking about how to handle her claims to the house and inheritance. She was already insisting she had a right to half the house because she'd contributed to the mortgage, and that her sacrifices entitled her to a share of the inheritance. I knew she was bluffing, but I had to be ready. I contacted a property appraiser and an estate lawyer. We needed to know exactly what the house was worth, what she could legally claim, and how to protect myself. I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd worked too hard for this house, and I wasn't going to let her steal it from me just because she was bitchy and manipulative. The worst part was the emotional toll. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry all at once. I'd loved Emily once, believed in our future, and now I was fighting her in court. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far, how I'd been so blind. Every day was a roller coaster. One minute I was furious, the next I was sad, and then I'd get a burst of motivation to keep going. I knew I had to stay strong for myself, for what I deserved. I promised myself I wouldn't let her win, not after everything I'd been through. As I sat in my lawyer's office going over the final details of our case, I realized I'd come to a crossroads. I could fight for the house, for the inheritance, and for my dignity. Or I could give up, accept her lies, and let her walk away with everything. But deep down, I knew I couldn't let her win. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I was also determined to reclaim what was mine. I'd learned a hard lesson, that some people are willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what they want, and you have to be prepared to fight for yourself. That's exactly what I was going to do. The court date finally arrived after months of legal battles, evidence gathering, and sleepless nights. I was ready, more than ready, to face whatever Emily threw at me. She showed up with her bitchy smirk, trying to look innocent, but I knew her game. Her lawyer was aggressive, spinning her lies about how she had contributed equally to the house and how I'd been unfaithful first, as if that justified her betrayal. I stayed calm, presenting every piece of proof I had, her texts, her transfers, her confession emails. I saw her face tighten as she realized her web of lies was unraveling. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, reviewing the evidence I provided. I could see Emily's lawyer trying to spin her story, but it was clear she'd been caught red-handed. The texts with Mark, the hotel pictures, her secret accounts, all laid out for the court. When it was my turn to speak, I was straightforward, I told the truth, and I made it clear I was fighting for what I deserved: my house, my inheritance, my future. I emphasized her manipulative behavior, her lies, and her betrayal. I didn't hold back. I wanted the court to see her for what she was: bitchy, selfish, and untrustworthy. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The house was awarded to me, and Emily's claims to the inheritance were dismissed. She was furious, screaming, crying, and throwing her tantrums in the courtroom. But I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over. I had fought for myself and won. I realized that sometimes standing up and fighting for what's right is the only way to reclaim your dignity. After the court decision, Emily's attitude didn't change overnight. She continued to lie and manipulate, but I was done letting her control my life. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and started rebuilding from scratch. I cut all ties with her and I focused on healing. It wasn't easy. There were days when I felt empty and betrayed, but I knew I had taken the right step. Looking back, I learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and some people will do anything to take what they want: money, power, or just the thrill of the betrayal. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, no matter how bitchy or manipulative the other person is, can save you from losing everything. I'm now more cautious about who I trust, and I value honesty and loyalty more than ever. The biggest lesson: don't ignore the signs. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Because in the end, your integrity and your future are worth fighting for. And if you're ever in a similar situation, don't be afraid to stand your ground. The truth will come out, sometimes sooner, sometimes later. But when it does, you'll know you fought for what's right.